Hey everyone, okay, today we are going to discuss a relatively controversial subject. We're going to do it in 3 parts. So this isn't healthcare or anything like taxes or the IRS. It's the controversial subject of a college tuition. Now, might not seem very controversial to begin with, but we're going to go into some pretty enlightening statistics that hopefully allow you to see some of the issues out there. So I'm going to do it in a three-part series. The first part, we're going to talk about basically parents setting the expectation of covering all of the college costs and fees and so forth for their kids. We are going to spend the second series talking about the actual numbers and economics of college in general. And this is going to, all right, if I can only spell economics, it's going to outline basically the average debt that students are leaving with, both credit card and student loan debt. It's going to talk about the unemployment rate right now for college graduates. It's going to talk about the average salary, and then we're going to get into the subsequent expenses associated with life and really look at the value of receiving a salary based on a college degree and whether it's worth it or not. And then finally, we're going to talk about, so we don't make you jump off a bridge, we're going to talk about solutions. And the solutions, there are many. I'm not going to address them all. But my number one thing as far as a solution is that you become aware and you realize that there is an issue, there are big issues, and then start to do something about it. And that can start today. It can start with educating your children, not just on the basic principles of education, but the idea of college, how it's paid for. But you can also look at ways in which you can mitigate the expenses. So there's a lot of things you're going to learn from this. All right, so today let's kind of scroll down here and look at the outline of this first video. All right, so the outline, we are going to basically look at the average tuition for a public college. Now, the reason why I'm not going to use private is because you probably would jump off a bridge, but because public school right now it's about $25,000 a year for everything. Private is much greater. Okay, private is about $45,000, and if you look at the difference as far as salary is concerned and unemployment, there isn't much. Okay, so looking at the direction we're going to take this first tutorial, it's going to be public. All right, so let's look at some of the metrics we're going to use. First off, this is today. I mean, this is 2013. I'm actually going to use a 4% increase to determine the future cost of education, future tuition, board, and so forth. Okay, so let's take the ages of the children that I want to analyze. We're going to use a 10-year-old. We're going to use an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and then a 4-year-old. And we're going to assume that the parents are setting the expectation of paying for all of their children's tuition, their room, their board, everything. All right, so, and then finally, we're going to look at the actual dollar amount that you would need right now saved. Okay, so right now, the present value of assets to afford all of these tuition expenses. We're going to look at what you would have to contribute annually. And then finally, we're going to look at the impact on the parents' retirement, the amount of money that would have accumulated for them, and the amount of money that could have been distributed through retirement based on that accumulated amount. Okay, so impact on retirement. All right, let's get into the numbers. Okay, so like always, I'm going to use truth concepts to calculate all of these values. You can learn about truth concepts by going to their website, which is www.truthconcepts.com. Okay, so the calculator I'm going to use is just a simple inflow and outflow, which can basically input interest and payment increases and so forth. This is going to be a very easy calculator to determine the values that I want you to see. Okay, so with the final child, the 4-year-old graduating school, that's going to be at the end of the 17th year. So we're going to calculate 17 years here. So 25,000 is going to be the total room and board based on 2013 values, and we're going to increase that by 4% every single year. Okay, so between year 1 and year 10. There's basically no expenses whatsoever. The expenses start in year 10. Okay, so to do that, we look at those 4 years. These are basically the $25,000 of tuition, board, and so forth payments in today's dollars. So the future dollars, 10 years from now, it's going to be about $35,583 for the first year, given a 4% increase. All right, so that's for child 1. Child 2, we will do the same thing, but they will start 2 years later. All right, let's minus that out, and then that's their 4 years. Okay, now the third child is currently 6 years old. They will start 2 years after that, which is right here. All right, there's their 4 years. All right, so here is the 10-year-old, the 8-year-old, the 6-year-old, so as always, I am going to be using the Truth Concepts calculator to show these values. To learn more about Truth Concepts, you can go to www.truthconcepts.com. Okay, so I'm going to use one of the calculators, which is called the cash flow calculator. It's basically going to show the inflows and outflows of money with different additions such as interest and payment increases and so forth. So we're going to use basically 17 years. At the end of the 17th year, the 4-year-old will be graduating. So the tuition expense, which is everything, room, board, food, everything, is $25,000 a year. We're going to use a 4% increase. Okay, so looking at the 10-year-old, and the first year they are going to go to school. It is here in year 8. All right, so let's look at what the 4 years of school will be at that point. So let's zero out that, zero out this. Okay, so the cumulative amount of money, so basically $32,000 is the future value of $25,000. And 4 years with tuition increasing by this factor, the factor of 4, will be about $140,000. Okay, so let's calculate child 2, who is currently 8 years old. So child 2 will start his schooling at year 10. So the first year of school will be $35,583. So let's look at what those 4 years will cost, $151,000. And then we'll look at the 6-year-old, same $25,000, 4% increase, looking at that 12th year. So copy that, paste that. All right, so their expense will be $163,000. Okay, so I'm running out of room here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this same column, this first column, to calculate the tuition expense for the 4-year-old. So just bear with me a second. So we will come into the 8th year, copy, and then come into the start of the 4-year-old, which will be right here. Paste, let's go make sure I did this one right. Copy, paste, okay. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So basically the total tuition will be $631,000. Now, looking at so that's just the total amount of money that will leave for college expenses for the 4 children. But looking at future money has a cost, and how most everything economically is predicted. With that cost, we have to look at what the present value would be as if money could have earned interest over a given period of time, which in this case is 17 years. Okay, so what we're going to look at is 5%. I'm going to use that as just an earnings rate that you would earn after tax. Maybe a little bit ambitious, but again, this is just an example. So looking at 5%, okay, that would basically be a final value of $821,502. Okay, so to look at the present value, because that's a future value, to look at the present value, we would use a present value calculator. All right, so the present value is determined by 821,502, 5%, the discount rate by 17 years. Okay, so $358,000 would be the amount of money needed to be saved currently in a bank account earning 5% to afford basically this all of this tuition. So let's go ahead and let's check our math. So 358,418, put it in here. And then what we're going to have to do here is, instead of these being additions, they are going to be withdrawals, because this is basically assuming that 358 is earning interest over a period of time, and then money will be withdrawn to pay for college expenses. So let's go in here, and we're going to change these to withdrawals. We should wind up with 0. And we do. Okay. So basically $358,000 earning 5% per year compounded would be enough to afford college expense for the 10-year-old, college expense for the 8-year-old, for the 6-year-old, and finally the 4-year-old. All right, now most individuals, as I stated in the beginning, don't necessarily have this type of money laying around right now, especially if they have young kids, such as this situation. Well, some do. I'm sure there's those anomalies out there, but individuals, to be in the position to afford this type of these types of expenses, would have to be saving on an annual basis. So let's look at what would have to be saved on an annual basis by this family to be able to afford the this tuition. Okay, so the way we do that is, first off, we have to take that same final value, which was $821,000, and we're going to look at a payment calculator. So present value is 0, starting out at 0. Future value is going to be 821,502. Earning 5% a year over 17 years is going to be a yearly payment of $30,277 to be able to afford this education. So saving $30,000 a year to afford education for four children using these variables. Okay. Now, looking at this, it may be feasible for the average family to do this. It is quite a bit of money. Now let's look at what impact, which is the final thing I said I was going to cover today, the impact that not having this money for retirement would be. All right, so the calculator we're going to use for that, let's copy this number first, is actually the same one. We'll use the same cash flow calculator. All right, now this family that has a 10-year-old, we're going to assume that they are, let's say, the 35, so 35, so 10-year-old, 25, yeah, that makes sense. So 35-year-old, and there's 30 years of saving to get to retirement age, which would be 65. So we're gonna put in a cash flow of $30,277.54 per year. Now let's say we can earn that same 5%. Now, looking at this family and what they were saving, they're only gonna have to do that for 17 years in that example. So we'll come down in here and zero out the remaining years. So what this shows is that the stream of payments they were making to afford college, okay, would have accumulated to $1.549 million by the time that they retired, given a 5% rate of return. Okay, so that's the future value. $1.5 million today and in the future is obviously quite a bit of money. Now let's look at the impact in retirement income that they're not going to have because they were paying for school. All right, let's go into the distribution calculator. First, I need to copy this final number and then go here. So the present value, paste that in. Let's say in retirement, which is normally the case with individuals, they're not shooting for the stars anymore, but want something conservative as far as a rate of return. So let's look at 3%. And we will do a 20-year distribution period, so 65 to 85. Now, let's just check on one thing just to make sure we're using a good life expectancy factor. So let me go in here into this life expectancy tool, which is the statistics by the American Academy of Actuaries, who are pretty good at determining life expectancy. So now this is not the future 65-year-old. This is a current 65-year-old. So a current 65-year-old in pretty good health is going to have lived about 21 years. We'll just use 20 years to make the calculations simple. All right, so $1.549 million, earning 3%, and then we can look at what the total withdrawals would be over 20 years by going here, pay down. Okay, so this family, this couple, whoever was coming up with the $30,000 per year would have been able to take $104,000 every single year in retirement, accumulating to $2.08 million in withdrawals. So looking at the impact that making these savings contributions to afford tuition, this is the impact that it's going to have. Okay, so this is basically concluding the first section. I want to look at in the next section just the metrics and the economics of education. But looking at this, hopefully this does open your eyes. I'm not saying that college education is not worth it. That's not the point behind this at all. The point is to make you aware so that you know these numbers right now so you can mitigate the probability of having this opportunity cost in the future. So stay tuned for part 2 and part 3 so you can have some solutions to these hopefully now evident problems.
You